from the supply side, we are talking about new energy, clean energy technologies. But from the demand side, metaverse can be really helpful in terms of reducing some needs for real transportation in the physical world, and also helping the industry to do like testing and experiments in the virtual world. So those will save lots of energy, lots of so from that perspective, that's also belonging to social implications of metaverse. But that also is part of applications in different industries. So as I mentioned before, the biggest consensus on metaverse is that metaverse will have a profound impact on everything, every single industry. So there will be various applications of metaverse in different industries, and we will need standards to help with them as well. So I also wanted to give you some examples about the fundamental standards we need to develop. For example, how to use the word metaverse in English currently is very confusing, and we are sort of providing some recommended practice, but I hope this could be also integrated into one of our standards moving forward. Like when we need to capitalize M, when we need to add A or Z before the metaverse, and when we just use metaverse with or without a capital M. Another perspective typically being debated is eventually will we have one metaverse or many metaverses? So some people think we will eventually have one metaverse, but I personally, I don't think that is an inclusive or open view. I do think there could be many metaverses. Some of them, well, hope many of them will be interconnected with each other. But even standalone metaverses will have their own values, especially from, well, either from industry perspective or from consumer perspective. Standalone metaverses could also still be helpful and valuable. So, but for the connected metaverses, we may call that Internet of Metaverses. This is just my personal opinion, but I think this is another aspect we need to figure out from the standardization perspective so that people will have common discussions. And also, there's another aspect. When we are talking about the features of metaverse, many people have summarized different sets of features for metaverse. But when we are talking about the features of metaverse, at least we should, from the standardization perspective, we should at least divide them into three different categories: mandatory features, recommended features, and optional features. We typically use shall to describe those mandatory features. We use should to describe those recommended features, and use may to describe those optional features. And also another dimension we need to carefully distinguish from each other is when we are talking about the feature of the metaverse, are we talking about their internal features or external features? Internal features means those characteristics you will observe or you will feel when you are virtually in the metaverse, in the universe of bits. And the external features means those features of the infrastructure or systems or devices you will be using to build a metaverse, to access a metaverse. In other words, that's features in the universe of atoms. So we need to distinguish these two different categories of features from each other. So with that being said, let me try to summarize what IEEE has been doing in the standardization aspects to pave the road to the metaverse. We started the IEEE Metaverse Congress as a series of virtual hybrid events starting from last June in order to provide a global and a comprehensive view of the metaverse. So today is session 9, but we started from session 0. So today is the 10th session. So this session series has been already very famous, and visible in the global metaverse community. So collectively, our previous 9 sessions had more than 90,000 attendees and visitors. If we also count in the visitors of our recordings afterwards. So it has been a very successful event series, and we will do more this year in different cities, and also the virtual sessions completed online. So we are planning different sessions throughout the year in Dubai, in London, in Zurich, and so on. So in January, we did a special session in Davos addressing the future of the web, the internet, and the metaverse. And just a few days ago, I think it was last week, February 6th, we did a hybrid session in Bangalore addressing how to onboard the metaverse from infrastructure to applications. Today, we are addressing new year, new momentum, and more to come. The URL of this Metaverse Congress is very simple, metaverse.ieee.org. So please stay tuned for our future sessions. And also, we had the first standards committee on metaverse in all the major global and international SDOs, the IEEE Metaverse Standards Committee. It was previously the IEEE VR and AR Standards Committee. We changed its name and scope in September last year, and now it's focusing on developing metaverse standards, especially addressing some fundamental issues. For example, the 2048, which is first standard under the new standards committee, standard for metaverse terminology, definitions, and the taxonomy. So this working group was kicked off a few days ago on January 31st. So it was very well attended. People are working together to try to rapidly develop a standard, a common consensus on metaverse terminology, definitions, and taxonomy. And the second one is 7016, which is the standards for ethically aligned design and the life cycle of metaverse systems. So that standard is primarily overseen by IEEE SSIT, Society of Social Implications of IT Information Technology. So and jointly overseen by the Metaverse Standards Committee. The 7016 was kicked off on February 6th, also a few days ago. It was also very well attended. So we believe these two are currently the very fundamental standards project to address metaverse from the terminology perspective and from the ethical perspective. We also have a 7016.1, which is under review and not yet being officially approved, but I hope that will be happening very soon. And 3812.1 is about the general requirements for identity framework for metaverse. I believe they are planning a kickoff meeting very soon. And we also have two IC. IC stands for industry connections. So in IEEE, standards development have to be conducted in working groups. But for everything else, like pre-standardization efforts, post-standardization efforts, and anything around the standardization efforts, we use industry connections programs to address them. So we established the two programs. One is persistent computing for metaverse. Another one is decentralized metaverse. And please note that on this page, we do not list all the IEEE metaverse-related standards and projects. We only listed the projects and standards which are literally and explicitly named after metaverse. So if you wanted to say a more comprehensive list, including all the metaverse-related standards and projects, you can read the article I put on at the bottom, or you can visit our URL, metaverse.ieee.org. We are maintaining a up-to-date list of projects on that page. I also wanted to mention that we are preparing preparing something new under the IEEE ISTO as the IEEE ISTO program. We call that Metaverse Acceleration and Sustainability Association. So the background or the vision, we need to accelerate the development and deployment of Metaverse. We need to accelerate the adoption of wider adoption of Metaverse, and we wanted to make sure everything will be sustainable, and also wanted to make sure that the Metaverse collection will support the global challenges, especially the sustainability. So to do that, this program will provide, will deliver roadmaps, will deliver standards in fast developed standards, and also we will be working with the industry to provide the pilot and reference implementations. And lastly, we will do conformity assessment and certification. So with that being said, I conclude my remarks today. I leave my contact information on the screen, so you are more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn or drop me an email. So I stop here, and I believe our next speaker, let me take a look. So Brian Markwater is our keynote speaker, so he's online now. So he is a senior VP for research and standards at the Consumer Technology Association, which is an organization behind the very famous, probably the largest industry show, the CES, Consumer Electronics Show. So it's our great honor to have Brian to give us a keynote about the metaverse from the recent CES. So Brian.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
so share your screen.
Well, I do not. Oh, there we go. Finally. Okay. Let me. Sorry, it just got enabled. Let me. Which view do you see? Do you see?
Yeah, we see the first slide of your metaverse standard out at CES. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, in full screen. So did. Let me.
Yeah, it's in full screen.
Okay. Now, let me. Did that advance? I just want to make sure we're.
Yeah, it works very well. Yes.
Very good. Let me go back. Yeah, so thanks for the introduction. It's good to see you at CES. It's good to be here with the IEEE community. I do work for CTA. We own and produce CES, the trade show in Las Vegas, every January. And I hope many of you have been. If not, put it on your calendar to attend next year. So just by way of background, for those who are not familiar, CTA is a U.S.-based trade association, but CES is a global trade show. We, of course, missed one show during the pandemic. We're back in 2022, and then again this year, 2023, and we had really kind of a blockbuster show. We were really happy with how the show went and the topics that were covered there. So we had 3,200 exhibitors, over 112,000. I think we'll be well above that number, actually. 112,000 attendees. 4,500 media covered the show. That's why you can so easily find lots of stories about the show. And then another thing that makes us very proud is the effort that people come to be at CES from all over the world. Over 140 countries were represented. And about a third or more of our attendees are actually from outside the U.S. So it is truly a global show. And not surprisingly, Metaverse was one of the hot topics and took the stage literally at CES. So during Dr. Lisa Su, that's Dr. Su on the right, CEO of AMD, she brought out on stage Magic Leap's CEO, Peggy Johnson, and they talked about their collaboration and why, the direction that Magic Leap is going with their headset. So many of you who are in this industry know about Magic Leap. They had perhaps a reset, maybe we'll talk about in just a few minutes, but to see these two executives on stage talking about their endeavors and the importance of metaverse and in this case, AR applications. I do want to drop in here a little dose of reality before I dive back into what we saw at the show. And I think you referred to some of this indirectly. So metaverse probably got ahead of itself in the hype cycle. And consequently, you see a lot of discussion in the press about, what is it and is it possible, will it succeed? So on the left here, you see some survey work from Ipsos and others that suggest that maybe we won't get there or people have a very poor understanding. I do find it a little ironic, the upper left, the 16% from Ipsos of people who can correctly define the term universe. Well, that, of course, assumes there is a correct definition, so I guess that's part of what IEEE will work on. Any of you in the standards world knows that this is a kind of a hot and a disputed idea. What exactly is the definition of the metaverse? However, on the right, CTA, we have done some consumer research. So is survey consumers, talk to them about what they're buying and what their preferences are. So there is a reasonable understanding of metaverse already. They are aware, and they are interested in learning more. I think beyond that, there are consumers who are very interested in some of the applications that have been talked about that we are still in the process of delivering. So if you look at a few of these, this is from work at CTA last year on our AR/VR. It's kind of a consumer sentiment study. And what you see are a couple of things that people find very appealing. One is this notion of being able to go places or experience things virtually that you're not able to at home. And then I think for the retailing and branding experience, you see a lot of interest in that whole area of brands. And that definitely showed up at CES. We'll talk about that too. Let me here. We look at three different buckets, so to speak. The experience, those who are at CES just showing off metaverse or immersive experiences, companies who are delivering the infrastructure to create metaverse or components of the metaverse, and finally access, like the haptics and display devices that are the means by which consumers actually experience the metaverse. On the experience side, we found it very interesting that Siemens showed off a partnership with Space Perspective. What they were showing was a form of space tourism. Space Perspective is developing a balloon. I did not mean to put something so hot in the media right now, but this was at CES. It is basically a space tourism balloon that you can sign up for. And what was interesting is the way they showed off this capability was through kind of an immersive where you went in and sat down and got a 3D experience of what it would like to be on this balloon at the edge of space. Lot, the famous duty-free, I think all of us who travel know about Lot, the duty-free company. They brought actually what they call their duty-free tower. Is a multi-story duty-free store, so to speak. That's the best way to think about it. They had built out a few floors of the tower and brought that capability to the extent you think about it. It's a virtual environment, obviously, but here you can see people in the booth for the first time experience that virtual storefront, if you will. And speaking of storefronts, a very interesting application was shown in Microsoft's booth in our automotive section, and they have a partner called TouchCast that is doing virtual retail environment. One of the things we're seeing is, companies have retrenched a little bit around instead of chasing the full immersion metaverse sort of Ready Player One experience. They're looking at like, how can we do business right now, meet consumers with things they want? And one of the things we noticed, from the CTA research, like others have, is that consumers want to experience retail, including at home. So TouchCast creates a virtual, in this case, what they've already done, they have a Fiat, the car company Fiat has created a virtual showroom. And so on the bottom right, you see kind of the experience that somebody, a user might have. And the whole point is to be able to walk into a showroom virtually. Not only that, TouchCast and Microsoft have realized not everybody's going to have headsets or want that. So they're very focused on making sure it's available on 2D screens also. All right, let's step into the components behind building the metaverse we saw at CES. Dassault Systems has been at CES for quite a number of years. They sell systems into companies like automotive for design, very complex CAD and other capabilities. They had a fascinating display. They looked at it and posed this question. This is a quote from one of their executives. If you can give an engineer a fully functioning jet to try out as a digital twin, why can't we do the same thing for doctors by letting them experience a fully functioning heart in a virtual world? So what's fascinating is they kind of combine digital twin with a physical twin too. They could 3D print a heart, but also allow people to experience that in a virtual world, so they could pick it up and see a heart in operation. We saw a lot of companies. In this case, this is Sony's entry into motion capture, what they call the Mocopi. We saw a number of companies doing this capability at CES. These are different kinds of motion capture. In this case, for Sony, they have a whole suite of tools. These bands, there are 6 bands that you can wear and then use cameras to capture, and they can create, they can use them for VR chat function or creating animation. You can see some of what's going on in the background. This is automatic animation generation using these motion capture devices. Lenovo showed off motion capture using cameras. Leica was an award-winning product that did sort of ground, for those who are trying to merge immersive and real-world environments. Leica has a system for capturing the ground environment that you then merge into your digital twin. I had the privilege of Martha Stewart. She's been on TV a lot with various advertising campaigns, including one in the metaverse with Oreo cookies. A small company called Hypervision had a quick kind of green screen capture system for doing avatar. So the whole idea was simple system, quick turnaround, simple tools for creating. Canon, on the other hand, at the very professional end, they announced a partnership with the famous director M. Night Shyamalan. They debuted a movie called Knock at the Cabin, and they had a whole VR experience built on the show floor. They used their volumetric video capture studio in Japan to do this work, and then showed off different capabilities that Canon has introduced immersive environments based on their imaging capability. All right, let's take a moment. We'll look at the gear. So this is the stuff that I guess people think about CES the most for, is what kind of hardware was out there, even though we saw lots of content, lots of software at CES. Of course, the big names in HMDs or head-mounted displays was, two of the biggest we see, of course, are Sony and HTC. So HTC showed their Vive XR Elite. So in this case, very light, working super hard at resolution, lowering the weight of HMDs, getting battery packs off of them as much as and reducing the cords, going fully wireless if they can, not always possible, and integrating controllers that allow people to operate in these virtual environments. So Sony had actually quite a bit of metaverse or immersive types of content in their booth. It was interesting to see very different. A lot of people commented very different. They didn't have a whole lineup of TVs there. They showed various immersive interactions that they're developing. So Sony, listening to the market, they've reduced their cabling and comes with their built-in controllers. Quite a few other displays and HMDs were shown at CES. The picture here's Shiftall's Meganex. They have this version, is kind of consumer oriented, very cool kind of design features. And they have an enterprise version. That's also not uncommon for these companies to pursue both an enterprise view of things, which is clearly what Magic Leap did, showing off surgical capabilities and other things they're doing. In terms of other headsets, Pico was at least shown in the Ultraleap booth. They have their Neo 3 and combined with Ultraleap's hand tracking capability. Lynx was a Kickstarter based design, and they were showing their R1 also with Ultraleap capability. And TCL, the really well-known global TV manufacturer, showed two types of headsets, Array Neo X2 and the Nextwear 5. And it wasn't just about eyewear, XR, VR, AR types of eyewear. It was also about the other senses and how you might experience those. And so we saw companies, again, with haptic technology, including bHaptics, had their TactSuit, the X series. From people I saw who tried it out, it was really quite an experience. You could integrate with gaming, of course, is one really hot application for haptics, since gamers are some of the earliest adopters of metaverse or VR technology. On the right, another type of haptics suit. This one a little bit different style, aimed at different markets. And there was a company called Tegway that was working on, they have what they call ThermoReal. So they're actually working at sort of like your skin sense, being able to feel heat. In their case, what they're trying to do is more like training exercise. For example, firefighters, where you want to be able to experience intense firefighting situations without putting the trainees in danger. A company called OVR Technology out of the US, they showed off technology. So as it turns out, a lot of our memories are associated with things we smell. There's a great article in IEEE Spectrum, it's been a little while now, months ago, but it talked about how many of our memories and the way scent is wired to your brain is very deep-seated. So it's a very long-lasting kind of memory. This company, part of what they want to immerse us in, another scent, is our sense of smell. So we will see as they roll out their product. Then not everybody is expecting everyone to wear head-mounted displays, although there are lots of options, including Vuzix that does very light AR glasses. In this case, a couple of companies, again, Sony, there with a full portfolio. They have what they call their spatial reality display. It's a holographic type display. It's meant for a user, sort of like a studio monitor style. You sit in front of it, but it does give you the capability to have full immersion. You can down like a holographic style, so you can bring up an image of the car. Of course, you can't show you in a 2D webinar, but that user could experience that car from different angles. Brillion also showed off what they call their Fusion 3D display for their applications. And so that's it for me. We had lots and lots of content on Metaverse at CES, that we will have a similar suite of products and announcements. So, if I could offer one takeaway, it's that we had everything from the new applications like training surgeons all the way through to the latest head-mounted displays for consumers. So see you in January at CES 2024. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Brian. So we have many people online, and if you can stay with us for a while, you may see some questions for you in the chat window, the Q&A. Yeah, thank you so much again. Then let's go to our next keynote speech. 1 week after the CES in Las Vegas, there was a World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland. So it's our great honor to invite Cassie Lee, who is head of media, entertainment, and sport Economic Forum, and she is also a member on the executive committee of the World Economic Forum. So she will be talking about build a metaverse for all. Welcome, Cassie.
Thanks, Yu, for that introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And thanks, Brian, for your presentation, because exactly to Yu's point, because of the timing of the annual meeting in Davos, I have never been to CES. So it's great to see how much that's been discussed and displayed in CES, and hopefully one day I could make it. So as you already introduced, I had the media, entertainment, and sport platform at the World Economic Forum. A huge thank you to the IEEE for the invitation. Really excited to be here to discuss the economic prospects of the metaverse and how we can tackle the challenges that come with it while building a metaverse inclusive and equitable for all. With almost 4 billion consumers, today's internet is where we consume content, connect, engage in commerce, and entertain ourselves. However, the internet's future evolving with the emergence of the metaverse. And the digital world promises to blur the line between online and offline life, offering a immersive and interactive experience with equal access to information, services, and entertainment. It's predicted to become a $800 billion dollar market by 2024. The metaverse is positioned to transform the social and economic structures from both enhancing social experiences to increasing access to healthcare and education. And as Brian mentioned, and also you, that the definition of the metaverse is still in development, and its growth brings new challenges and opportunities. So with this context, as a leading international organization for public-private partnerships, the forum is uniquely adept at convening a diverse group of stakeholders to define and build the metaverse. And that's why we launched this initiative. I can just share my screen here. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. We launched the initiative back in May 2022 to basically gather the stakeholders of government, businesses, academia, to guide the development of a safe, inclusive, equitable, interoperable, and economically viable metaverse. The initiative focuses on two key areas: metaverse governance and economic and social value. The governance track focuses on defining a set of recommended governance frameworks to prevent harm, mitigate risks, and ensure equity and interoperability. The value creation track focuses on exploring economic and social value creation in the metaverse and providing guidance for organizations to prepare for disruption and value creation. Both tracks takes a ethical, forward-thinking approach and work collaboratively to balance governance with economic and social opportunities. Since launching, the initiative has convened more than 100 partners and organizations in its 2 working groups to begin exploring themes across both tracks. Our annual meeting 2023 in Davos just 3 weeks ago, we produced the first outputs from both tracks. The governance track report interoperability in the metaverse reaffirmed that interoperability is a crucial aspect in the development of the metaverse, as it enables seamless communication and data exchange across different platforms, technologies, and environments. So, for example, we envision scenarios such as doctors performing medical training or surgery using VR, but what does it mean for people in different countries using different type of headsets or accessing through different platforms? And to achieve this, focus on 3 key areas: technical, usage, and jurisdictional interoperability. Technical interoperability involves designing the metaverse infrastructure to be secure and compatible, ensuring that users can access and use virtual assets with confidence. Usage interoperability prioritizes the user experience, making the metaverse accessible to all, regardless of location, culture, or age. And jurisdictional interoperability ensures that the metaverse operates within legal and ethical standards across different regions and countries. But it is important to remember that interoperability is not inherently good or bad. It's a spectrum and should be respected, as different providers may leverage interoperability to create differentiated services across platforms. All aspects of the metaverse needs to be interoperable, and the stakeholders should carefully consider the implications of mandating interoperability. But with that said, it's equally important to ensure that increasing interoperability doesn't compromise user safety or security. And that's why for the next phase of governance track, we will focus on privacy, safety, and security, followed by identity. Again, the work that IEEE is doing here is extremely compatible with what we do, because we're not a standards setting organization. For us, the strength has always come from public-private partnership and collaborate. It's about the power of the forum to convene and really make sure that we have the most relevant stakeholders at table as we're building the next iteration of the internet. For value creation, our first output is called Demystifying the Consumer Metaverse. This report explores the key components, foundational technologies, roles and paths to economic value and growth in a singular consumer metaverse. In our report, we offer insights on navigating opportunities and challenges in the metaverse. We explore how business can thrive among the industry disruption and discover innovative ways consumer organizations are shaping the future. Understanding the consumer components, economic models, and social impact is crucial for equitable adoption and value distribution. And the report answers the question, how can organizations and individuals create equitable economic value in the metaverse? And I wanted to emphasize the reports are really for us just an end, just a means to an end, and not the end itself. The real work lies behind the process where we try to drive consensus, which is not always easy, as this audience will know. But at the end of the day, it is important that we agree on some of the principles, again, as we go on this journey together. The value creation track starts with exploration of the consumer-facing metaverse, and we'll move on to the industrial and enterprise metaverse in the search the opportunities and trade-offs in access, inclusion, sustainability, and well-being for those seeking to use the metaverse. The tracks collaborate closely to ensure that value creation in the metaverse is considered within a well-established governance framework, and the governance recommendations remain mindful of economic and social opportunity. Well, in building a metaverse for all is a massive opportunity to transform our world for the better. It offers immense potential for social cohesion, economic growth, and innovative new forms of value distribution and accessibility. But it is important that we approach this opportunity with purpose, ethics, and AI towards creating a inclusive and safe environment for all. The defining and building the metaverse initiative is working towards this goal, and we look forward to having as many of you as possible to join us in this initiative through our two working groups. So if you're interested, please do get in touch. And thanks again, you and IEEE for this invitation.
Thank you so much, Cassie. Also, you may have some questions in the chat window. If you have some couple of minutes to stay with us. Thank you so much again.
Thanks.
So let's welcome our next speaker, Leonardo from the chair and founder of MPI community. He was also the co-founder and the chairman of MPEG, the very famous MPEG from 1988 to 2020. So in my opinion, he is really a guru for multimedia standards development. And his organization, MPI, they released something new on January 25th. So I will leave it to Leonardo to give us a keynote talk about a roadmap to metaverse interoperability. Welcome, Leonardo.
Thank you, and also thank you for inviting me to this conference. I mean, as you said, I have been involved in an organization that contributed to communication across countries at a time when video-based communication across countries was impossible. And now we are facing a similar situation, and we thought that we could contribute to something. Of course, this is a very big problem, but step by step, we can try and achieve the famous metaverse interoperability, which, by the way, more than the metaverse itself would require definition. So having standard for metaverse is important because the metaverse is so interesting. There are opportunities. There are jobs experiences from consumers. Many say the metaverse will be like the web. This is hard to make happen if there are no standards. Again, we should know what we mean by standards, but let's move on. Then there are disparate customer industries, and it's clear that you cannot say interoperability for all, and it cannot be one size fits all. But this is not a new problem with standards. I faced this problem many times over the past decades, and because you find that some technologies are only used by some industries and others don't need them. And so how can make all of them stay together? So then I would like to talk to you about an approach that we have developed within MPAI. And it is an approach that has been inspired by decades of practical experience in communication matters. So is MPI? Well, it's a moving picture audio and data coding by artificial intelligence. We are an international non-profit standard development organization. We develop AI-based data coding standards. That's what our mission is. And in addition to that, we also offer standards that have a clear intellectual property rights and licensing frameworks. What characterizes our standard the fact that it's component-based. I mean, you have a lot of AI applications that can occur with and not too monolithic and not make them too obscure. So essentially, if we have an AI application, we subdivide it in smaller components that we call AI modules. We aggregate them in one or more AI workflows, and we execute them in a standard environment. That's the baseline of what we are doing. So what we have done, so we have one foundational standard, which is the AI framework that I just talked about. Governance of the entire ecosystem, because we are talking about AI and we are talking about data. Some governance is needed. This is what this standard is about. And we have 4 standards and 1 technical report, the one that has been just mentioned by you. One is about audio, context-based audio enhancement. Another is compression understanding of financial data. How can you predict the future of a company? Multimodal conversation, how you can make human and computer communicate using emotional information, neural network watermarking, and the Empire Metaverse model, the functionality, which is part 1 of a series of standards that we plan to develop. So what are we doing now? So we are extending standards. We are developing 2 new standards. One is the Empire Metaverse model functionality profiles I will talk about. Then we have 6 exploratory activities. I would mention in particular in the video coding space that we are working on an AI-based end-to-end video coding, and we have exceeding the performance of existing standard with this AI-based approach. And then finally, last but not least, many thanks to IEEE. We had 3 of our technical specification adopted without modification, and we have 2 more that are on their way. So I don't want to come to a conclusive resolution of the interoperability issue, but so this is a picture, not exactly this one, but inspired by a picture that we have developed in MPEG some 15 years ago in a standard that was called MPEG-V. So essentially, if you have 2 entities that want to talk to one another, either they agree on the vocabulary or they need a translator or they need both. So around this notion, we can do a lot to make the metaverse happen without getting into the very difficult space of standardizing technologies. So this is what I've said about interoperability. So we are mentioning here something that CMS stands for Common Metaverse Specification, something that I will talk more in a minute. So the second step was to agree on what we are talking about. So we have a set of definitions. We think that this is a consistent set of definitions. Some people will say, why are you calling this in this way? This is not important. You can call it what you want. What is important is the architecture and the connection of terms. This is what we have tried to do, and we are certainly happy to contribute this to anybody who is interested in this fundamental issue. The third step is if you want to collaborate, then we should share some assumption. So I give you 3 out of 7 more that we have developed. The first one is that we collect and organize functionalities. This is a process that we have started. The document that we have published on the 25th of January is a first step in the direction. It doesn't include the collection of all functionality that you can desire from a metaverse, but it is really a step forward, and he's helping us in making the further steps. What is important is that you record the functionalities. But if you record the functionality, it does not imply that there should be a metaverse instance that supports it. Simply that we are recording the fact that this functionality is useful. We'll see in the future how we can manage that. And this is a process that we started using some 30 years ago in the MPEG-2 standard, and with some success, I would say. The second assumption is that there will be common metaverse specification. So how, when, who that is remains to be decided. But for sure, we will need this collection of specifications that provide the technology that support the functionalities. And the third is that we want to develop profiles. This is what I was said before. You cannot have one size fits all when you have such a diverse number. This number of diverse entities, industries that have different needs. Therefore, the profile approach is what we have proposed and we are following. Just a reminder about what is the profile approach. So imagine that you have a set of toolkit and you put a few together because you need to do a certain job. You put together others when you need a job that is, it's common with the first one, but it may be also useful for something else. And you develop another profile that again has some differences. All are taken from the same toolkit. So this is the definition of profile. So you take standards, you take classes, subsets, option parameters of those base standards, and you put them together to accomplish a particular function. This is exactly what we are trying to do. So I'm saying let's use the profile approach for the metaverse. Well, that's easier to say than to do because we really need a reality bath, and this is a list of elements that you should take into consideration when applying this, because the then means what has happened so far, and now is what we need to do for the metaverse. And we see so many differences in terms of goal, in terms of the industries involved. They were so far almost homogeneous, but now they are very heterogeneous. We knew the functionalities. Now we have ideas, many ideas, and today I heard quite a few, very useful, very interesting. Then the technology at the time was essentially available, essentially accessible, but now we have very important technologies that are missing. People are working, but we don't have them yet. Then the profiles are from a single standard, but now we are going to have a multiplicity of standards that have to put together in order to bring, to make things interoperable. Regulation is another issue. In the case of video, kind of known, but now it is really unknown. The scope was national or regional, now it's definitely global. The technology was about data processing, and now it is data processing and a lot of AI. And the IP model, how do you license things? Well, that was kind of easy. No, it was very complex, but we started from the decades-old consumer electronic model, and now, well, we don't know what it is. So let's engage in the fourth step. This are all things that we have done. They are not complete, but we have passed through these phases. So we have collected a number of use cases from different industries. You see automotive, finance, food, gaming, retail, real estate, travel. So we have extracted functionalities from these use cases. This is not the only source, because if you have a metaverse instance running, you may have all the functionalities inside. Some you take from so thinking for it, like you can your own, but maybe consider having an external service provider, and therefore we need to consider which are the functionality that we get from this source. So this is it's just an introduction to our first step, which is really the collection of functionalities. You will see here the real world, and here is a virtual world. We have environments on one side, we have environments in another side. The virtual environment is kind of replica of the real world. So here you see that this green here corresponds to this human here, but this blue here corresponds to nothing, because this is a virtual, human. And so we have identified a number of classes where we have put together the elements, and this is what we see. These are the functionality areas that we have identified. So what if you have a full metaverse, how you manage, organize, which are the features, what is the storage, how you manage the process, what is the security. Same for a subset of a metaverse, which is a business on its own, but is hosted by a metaverse instance. Then, you are in the metaverse, so how do you perceive the universe? And if you are in the universe, how do you perceive the metaverse? So these are similar topics, but the viewpoint is completely different. Then what does a metaverse user do? How do you implement the interaction between a metaverse and a human being? How do you represent the content? How do you support the economy? This is obviously very important. And how do you search information? This is just the beginning, but of course, searching information will be very important in the metaverse. So this is how we have organized. At the moment, we are about 150 of these functionality. They are structured in areas, a sub-area, a title, description, comment, and dependencies. So this is how they are organized. So we have reached the first milestone, 5th of January. We have a technical report that is called Empire Metaverse Model, and the name of the part is called Functionalities. It contains definitions, assumptions, use cases, external services, functionalities, analysis of technology, and some hints about the governance of the metaverse. But of course, this is very, very, very much at the beginning, because we are working on milestone 2, and the result we expect to be functionality profiles. This let me give some more ideas about why, after defining the functionality, we are defining functionality profiles. Well, it's because it would be nice if we had the technologies and we could choose the technology to satisfy functionalities. The problem is that, quite a few of key technologies are missing. So this does not mean that we should not try to and see what we can do about defining, exploiting the user profiles. And so with it, we are putting together functionality profiles that are a group of functionalities instead of being the technologies. And therefore, we can test the profile based on what they do, the functionalities, not on how they do it. And this is very important, because very often when you select technology, if you don't do the right separation of what do you need to do, then let's discuss about how we do it. So this was one of the success elements of the MPEG history. So what we have in the functionality profile, well, we have a metaverse operation model. So this part is what we already have, almost have, an operational model. Then we have actions. So what you can do in the metaverse. And then we have, okay, you can do something on what you do and how you do it. Then we are working on code implementing these actions, developed in the JSON representation of the items, and we will provide some functionality profiles. We have ideas on how we can put together. Don't forget that all this is to test the methodology. What will not be in this functionality profile is technologies. For instance, we are not going to say how an audio is represented, how you stream a LiDAR, how you animate an avatar model. So this will not be there, but we identify what the functionalities are required in the profile. So these are a few of the actions that we have identified. Actuate is essentially how do you render things in the universe, how do you animate an object, how do you compose an object in an existing scene, and so on and so on. So this again is how we organize our work. So we are taking now the action animate What's the purpose? Is to enable a user to give an entity. An entity is, call it object if you want, a stream, and the rights to animate. And as a result, you can change the feature of the entity with the, unless there's something goes wrong, of course. So the data, well, of course, there will be the data, but we don't talk about the data, but we do talk about the payload that is used to communicate with the server what you are requesting. Here you have another collection of items. So an account, what is an address, what is an amount, what is an asset, currency, emotion, location, metadata, and so on and so on. And here again, you have an example of how we specify the item object. So it's a similar notion, but of course it's applied in a different way. So let me talk about the milestones in the current year. So we will have a metaverse architecture, and that is about what are the main functional blocks and what are the data types exchange. We are not talking of technologies. The fourth is the functional requirement of the data types exchange between functional blocks. The fifth is a table of contents of a common metaverse specification. So we know that there will be one. So let's start defining the table of content. And because MPI has some technologies that are relevant, we try and see how we can map our technologies in this common metaverse specification. Of course, this is not the final, but again, it is for the purpose of fine-tuning the machine and see that it works. So what we planned on reaching is a milestone number 6 in December, and show that metaverse standard can be practically developed. So this is the roadmap, the full roadmap to metaverse interoperability. Unfortunately, I'm seeing that I am running out of time. Therefore, I would like to thank you for listening to my speech and inviting you to join this exciting adventure. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Leonardo. We're excited to see those progress in MPI, and I look forward to working with you to make some of them IEEE standards, if you will. So yeah, so there may be some questions for you in the chat window if you stay with us for a couple of minutes. So basically, this our session today comes to the end, but I'd like to echo our speakers said today that there are lots of new progresses happening in various aspects of the metaverse. And also I'd like to echo some suggestions in the chat window. Some of our audiences are suggesting if we can make some like PDH or continuing education certificate available for this event series. That's something we will consider moving forward. And also there are lots of other constructive suggestions in the chat window in terms of addressing other aspects of metaverse, such as like social implications, of course, especially security, privacy, and also addressing the blockchain aspect of metaverse, how to build, well, what blockchain will be playing a role in the metaverse, and how to, let's say, what kind of blockchain will be appropriate for metaverse. So those kind of questions I hope we'll be addressing in our future sessions. And also, if you join our metaverse.IEEE.org, we are building an online community there. So you will be very welcome to initiate or discussions in that community. So the URL is metaverse.IEEE.org. So I believe that's all we have today, and I will thank you, every one of you again, for your participation, and especially many thanks to our keynote speakers. I truly appreciate your great support. So we are done with today's session, and I look forward to your participation in our future sessions. We will have many of that throughout the year. Okay, thank you so much. Have a good one, and bye-bye.